Okay, so just wanted to explain the requirements for sports coaching assignment 3, where you need to plan and deliver a coaching session. And you'll probably find that I will try to challenge you by allocating you a skill or an activity that might not be your normal sport. So just sort of getting out of your comfort zone and requiring you to do a bit of research. And you will find that during these coaching sessions, you will be the coach when you lead your session, but you'll also be participants for each other. And it's really important that you kind of show a little bit of respect for each other in both of those roles, and it will, help everybody. So just really quickly, just show you the assignment brief. As you're probably familiar with these now, the document starts with the mark sheet that I'll complete. The student review sheet that you need to fill in, obviously checking that you've completed all the work in the right way. There's the sort of image front cover sheet, and then we go through our scenario, our assessment criteria, the task list, the important sort of Unix spec that I'll show you again in a minute, and then the templates that you need to complete. There are sort of two templates. One is the lesson plan, which is, I think, 2 pages. All the red stuff in this document is there as guidance. I'm going to go through that in a moment, but when you're completing this form, once you've used the guidance, can you delete the red writing? So all that I should see in these templates is your written work. And then here's the second template, the risk assessment, which again I'll show you how to complete in a moment. So let's have a closer look at the unit specification. So you're required to be able to plan a sports coaching session, and here is a long list of the sorts of considerations that you might need to show that you understand and have thought about whilst planning your session. And the template that I've given you actually addresses these elements. So you need to really check that you've completed the template properly. You also, within this assignment, are going to be delivering your session, and we'll go on to review it in assignment 4. So we're just in this assignment looking at the delivery part of this. The review will come in assignment 4. But again, here's the sort of things that you need to look at when delivering your session. So we've got 3 assessment criteria, and this is kind of chunked into 2 bits. P4 is for planning your sports session yourself. So again, I'll go through in a moment how to go about planning your session. And P5 and M4 are about delivering your session. If you needed help or guidance or support from me, you would be limited to P5, but if you can essentially deliver a session independently, then you get a merit grade. In most cases, students get merit. I will mainly intervene if things really go astray or if there are any safety issues, and obviously that's my priority. So hopefully most of you will be able to achieve a merit in this assignment. So the scenario, you'll obviously be completing a lot of community sports leaders tasks and activities during this coaching sports science unit anyway. And the scenario basically asks you as a leader to show off what you know and to plan and deliver a safe session. So 2 tasks in this assignment: planning and delivering the session. So task 1, complete the planning template in the assignment brief, making sure you think through every element of the session and use lots of resources to help prepare yourself, not just what you think you know. You'll need to actively do some research to do a good session on this, because hopefully it won't be something you're that familiar with. So in terms of preparing, you need to research the activity itself, know the rules of the activity, because you should really relate some of your teaching to safe practice and rules, and you'll need to know specific teaching points for any skill that you're teaching. Not just have a go at it, but actually break it down into teaching points. In terms of where you'll do this research or how you'll do this research, I can't stress enough that coaches, people you might know, your peers actually, will often be a really, really good resource. So if you're allocated netball and you've never done that before, talk to somebody who has. Other people often have quite a lot of experience. YouTube is brilliant. Google is obviously very effective, and there are some coaching manuals in our classrooms, and you might have access to others yourself. So actively do some formal research rather than just perhaps making things up of what you think it might be like. So let's have a look at the breakdown of the template. So this is for task 1, planning. The first section is really about the people you're going to be coaching, so information about the participants. You might not know everything, but the point is you're showing off that you're aware of what you should think about. So the age, whether they're males or females, because that can make a dramatic difference in how you approach the session. Approximate fitness levels. Again, this might affect what you plan to do in your session. Very importantly, if there's any medical information that you might need to know about. But at the start of your session, you should, of course, ask about injuries anyway, because something might have happened before, prior to the session. But if there's anything you can know in advance, if people have asthma inhalers, they should have them with them. It's really important to be aware of that. And in coaching situations, this is really critical. It could also be that people have other needs, so they may have certain impairments or behavioural issues or colour blindness, just things to be aware of that can help you be more effective as a coach. The next sort of session of your planning is about facilities and resources, because you can't just rock up to a session, hope to deliver something and not know that you're going to have the equipment or the space to really optimise that coaching session. So obviously be aware of where it might be. In many cases it might be in the sports hall, but it might be that we can't have it, or it's best done outside on the field or the courts. That will affect your planning. What you need, whether you need the whole space or some of the space, sometimes more is better, sometimes less is more. So quite important to think that through. Resource needs. Fiscal as in money. So this might be less relevant to yourselves, but if sometimes you're going to offer prizes, you might need to buy them in advance, and if there's a massive group, you want to be a bit mindful about how much you're spending. Physical resources, so the things that you might need, you need to, in advance of your session, know exactly how many basketballs we've got, or exactly how many tennis balls we've got, or make sure you know exactly how many cones you'll need for the session. Don't just rock up and then spend 10 minutes at the start of the session faffing around with that. That's not a good coach. Human resources, so again, perhaps a bit less relevant for yourselves, but it could be that somebody has a specific physical need and you might need extra sort of hands or support to deliver your session. Health and safety is absolutely paramount in sort of today's culture, because if something goes wrong in your session, you might be considered negligent. So you have to think through before, during, and at the end of the session. Quite often the session ends with students and everything just gets sort of left. So plan the health and safety of how to put things away, how to take down the volleyball post without it damaging somebody. Really essential you think through these things. And again, as a coach, the what ifs. Something could go wrong in a session, even though you've planned very thoroughly. Accidents do happen, or the fire alarm might go off. So you need to be very clear as the coach responsible for your group what you might do if this does happen. You will do, for task 2, you will complete a risk assessment. So if there's anything that comes out as just something to be quite aware of, just be mindful of that through your session. So that's facilities and resources. As I said, the risk assessment you will do. So the planning of the session itself, absolutely critical. I expect to see progressive sessions. Start the session, the students or participants will come in. What are you going to do with them when they come in? They'll typically come in dribs and drabs. Are you going to get them going in an activity? Are you going to let them use the equipment straight away? Is that going to be chaos? Do you want them just to come in and sit down? What are you going to say in your introduction? What are you going to ask them in your introduction? Are you going to ask them about safety things or previous experience? You need to plan this. Once your activities begin, obviously you need to start with some kind of warm-up activity. Now, I really wouldn't want to see every session starting with people jogging around the outside of the hall, doing nothing relevant to the session. There's every reason that you can do a physical warm-up and stimulate your participants, and maybe introduce something that's skill related if you can, so that it will link in and start them going on their learning rather than being an activity that is just totally separate and not related at all. It probably wants to have a fun element to it also. So the warm-up's really powerful. It's the first thing you're going to deliver with them. Plan it, make it challenging, make it interesting, make it fun, make it relevant. The main content then, as I said, I need progressive activities. So you would start with something. I'm just going to flip ahead actually. You would start with something that introduces your skill on a very basic level, that gives you an opportunity to give them probably 3 clear teaching points that you're going to repeat throughout the session. You're then going to move on to another drill or practice that will develop that skill, that adds to the challenge. Maybe another drill that adds to the challenge, develops the skill further, maybe becomes more challenging in terms of having a defender there. The earlier practices might not have defenders, might just be about learning and being able to perform the skill. By the end of your session, your participants hopefully will be in some kind of conditioned game where it is a little bit more competitive. It might not be full game, but could be a version of it. I'm just going to go back here. So when you're completing this template, each row should really be a different phase of your sort of main content. So your first practice introductory drill there, your next one there, your next one there, your conditioned game there. You use diagrams. Diagrams are really good to clarify in your head what you need to do. Obviously read this read material before you complete your template, and then delete it once you've read it. But there are some more prompts in there you can read at your leisure. So we've done the main session. There should be an element of cool down. Given timing, we may or may not be able to do that fully. And a plenary. And a plenary is really a way of you to control the group, check their learning. You want to know there's some feedback. You might ask them questions about what they learned during the session whilst doing a physical cool down. And these can happen at the same time. When you're doing some stretching, you can be talking to them. And end the session making sure all equipment is away. It's your responsibility to organise the equipment, not mine. So plan this in your session. Allocate time for this in your session. Really quickly then, task 2, completing the BASVIC risk assessment format. And here is the template. And these rows here are what you need to complete. Obviously put in the activity that you're doing, where it is, the date, and you sign it. And I've given a sample risk assessment here. So you might say, what are the hazards? Well, people could slip in the hall. Who would be at risk? All the people participating. What control measures have you got in place currently to try to avoid this being a risk and a problem? I'm going to do a visual check of the floor at the start of the session to check nothing's sort of astray. There's no water or anything. What's the likelihood out of 3 of this happening? 1 being not very likely, 3 being very likely. What are the outcomes? So how serious would it be if this was going to happen? 1 being not massively serious, 3 being very critical. And then you times these 2 together to give you your risk rating. And where the risk rating is sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, you probably don't need to take further action. These are things to be mindful of and to do, but they are probably quite controlled. However, if there was a hazard which affected people, which, you had some measures in place, but the likelihood of it happening was higher, the outcome was quite severe, and your risk rating was 6, let's say, or up to 9, you definitely need to take further action or look again at what control measures you've got, because this activity might not be safe. So you need to think about your session, all the way through your activity, all the possible hazards, things that might be a problem and put somebody at risk. Go through this process and then determine whether you need to adjust your safety planning. And that risk assessment, obviously, again, will be completed in the assignment brief document and submitted. So hopefully, at the end of all this, you will have done enough of your planning to be able to deliver independently a really challenging and exciting and creative session. Try to think outside the box and challenge yourself and your participants. And these sessions are really enjoyed by students.